And now we have invited for the closure short word the High Commissioner for Peace, but also the High Commissioner for Peace, Danilo, is an old colleague of works and fights, and I feel honored so, to close our forum to have Danilo to have the last intervention. Thank you very much to the Truth Commission, to the President, Antonio, and the whole working team, and those who want to remain in the room. I had invited to be in the morning, but I had a problem of agenda. It was difficult, and I had the chance to be here just now. First, I believe that from the last intervention, everything has been said. We have talked about the big piece, and the big piece, the great impact is that we are talking in our country about transition, which matches a government plan is different, but the country is talking about transition. As we talk of truths, we talk about energy transition, there is a feeling and an attempt to move from the sad emotions that Mauricio Garcia quotes, to a country with a beautiful existence. Difficult, complex, but I think that we are willing and getting ready with this first, with the demobilization of the paramilitaries, with all the criticism back then, since from the organizations we did, where I used to belong to the space of the civil society, and that started to show goals, how it was possible to create scenarios for truth. And we found, by the way, talking about the missing persons, we found beautiful women in Antioquia who breaking the paradigms of the big victim social movement approached the cannibal people who were arrested in the Itagüí jails, in approaching in that dignity and the direct staring directly to scramble down the haughtiness of the one that used to be armed, but that haughtiness that you have, that pride that you have in your daily living when you have made a mistake, to feel some shame, to stand firm, to deny, but to scramble internally and to acknowledge. And we talk about the big piece. I believe that the big piece goes through the search, internal search of recognition of their own shadows of you as a human being. We are not holy persons. We are not perfect. We are what we are. And recognizing this is important to approach the other, the fellow man, the respect and dignity. And the peace agreement with FARC resumes those discussions. We know what happened in the assessment of laws 975, and this about the restorative right started to get a momentum. It was initially conceived as impunity exercise. Of course, coming out of the jail, it's freedom, but there's not a bigger problem than what happens inside, the freedom of your conscience, what is moving inside, and that eats you alive and expresses physically and expresses in their daily relationships, expresses in the heritage, the children, and the offspring, the future generations. Nothing is free. And Elena said, what happens with children? Apparently, they are infants. They are infants, and their knowledge is much limited than ours. But the thing is that it's a deep knowledge. Talking about the restorative knowledge goes through, in addition to the legal scenario, goes through that nature of the individual, but also becomes or happens in an extrajudicial scenario like it was in the uh, Truth Commission. But beyond the institutions, it began to happen clearly in tens and thousands of victims in different territories in Colombia. And I believe that the idea, beyond the idea, the culture, beyond the culture, the spirit of the transitional justice is here to be part of a world commitment to show other ways of justice beyond the criminal punishment, to show the possibility that the accountable of the harm to a person, to a group of humans, can restore damaged the damage that was caused from scenarios of dialogue, from the location of the context and the places wherein the events happened. And today, that which is criticized and that must be improved is learning. We have a lot of things. We have the incarcerated person sentenced to 60 years, even against decisions of the Constitutional Court that recommends the need to assess what a 60-year sentence means. And there are people, even in that condition, they see how tempting it is to live, what it means to live, or to have less years incarcerated. But we have also seen in jails, we have also seen in jails in those human beings that had perpetrated and participated directly the the crimes against humanity, decisions of conscience to contribute to the truth, to prevent things to happen again. And we have found amid the pandemic mechanisms on how the victims met with them through letters, WhatsApp messages, and they were generating transformation processes where the affected people and the accountable people had this interaction. And today we have a new possibility through this new government, which has recognized publicly the delivery of the final report and has taken over the conclusion of the recommendation of the Truth Commission. How will this happen in the office? I don't know. But there is a commitment that was reiterated last Sunday. And that commitment we can envision has concrete elements today. The first one is the willingness for dialogue with all armed groups, without exception, respecting their nature, their self-definition, their identity. Each one, each one in their place, respecting each one in their self-definition, in their identity, with a public manifestation of willingness to make peace part of their movement, to perform approaches to value their willingness, to appreciate their willingness, and to find ways identifying each stakeholder in its own place, and acknowledging that there are structural issues of historical depth.
El propósito
The purpose is to go to the territories, and this means that with the unilateral ceasefire or not, the government has a commitment of going there to listen, to dialogue, and to enter into concrete commitments for change in face of profound inequality and marginalization of many human groups in this country. Those many human groups are in the fields and in the cities. That's why the effort for total peace implies necessarily the acknowledgement of urban violence. These urban violence, which sometimes are entangling with invisible threats with rural violence. For example, if we manage that the Cali officers that exerted pressure, that they were in the social explosion in the 13 points where Father Pacho is a witness, we are witnesses, and Archbishop Dario Monsalve saw it clearly why social dialogue is important with young people, because they had the chance for the officers to provide weapons. But if we can solve comprehensively, systematically, the whole violences that interact, that disappear, that don't have the political connotation, allegedly, we are thinking that we can base the possibilities of cease of most of the armed violence exercises. I insist, understanding its nature, its motivation, but also the government should exert or provide an answer to the rights of the citizens, particularly the layers that are excluded and impoverished in this country. And now we're inviting the society. This respecting the autonomy of society, of course, and as mentioned by the director of the missing persons search unit, if the government has to coordinate, provide effective answers in that coordination, in its presence in remote areas, there should be someone from the Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Mines and Energy, Ministry of Equity, everything, everyone should be there. It is also an invitation for civil society to strengthen the spaces of convergence, of gathering, despite their differences, in order to dialogue in a more effective manner. We have a huge map of creativity from the civil society, but it's too uh, respectfully, it's too ineffective to listen on different instances of civil society the same claims when they could gather and agree, and we could all win in efficacy, in results. And the idea here is that the government comes to the territories, and from the territories, the remote areas should be heard, should be listened, and with our coordinated measures nationwide and locally, we will all be winners. We'll be winners in efficacy. Few resources, financial resources are scarce, economic resources are scarce, but is it necessary to characterize a collective territory for the restitution unit? The GEP has to perform another characterization, the victims unit has to perform another characterization, three characterizations on the same territory. Oh my God, how long, how many resources, and nothing is solved. If the community is saying it, let's agree on it. The same characterization will be used for the state agents, they're responsible for the state and the executive power. If we have to make a judgment, we do it. We'll save time, save money. We will not be working extra hours and will have a greater impact. This is the respectful invitation. Thank you so much to you all for your time. And we hope that everyone is engaged in the total peace that begins from within ourselves for a deep democracy. If we go back to Gandhi and many others that have told us about change starting within for the institutions to become life. I wish you a happy life. Good night.